All right, here now with Lydia. Lydia, do you want to say anything by way of introduction to start? What do you want to say about yourself?
My name is Lydia, and I live in Alameda. I've been living here for about 13 years, and I got a crunch, and I know all the crunchies, and that's how I know Kisa.
Yeah, okay. I was just sitting here thinking of the things that I wanted to ask you specific to you, but then you said that you have been wanting to talk about something, a conversation we had the first time we actually spoke. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
What was the conversation about?
So when the first time that we actually talked, because I had seen you at Crunch before, it was like one of those things, a familiar face. But the first time we talked was at Almanac, and the first thing that you said to me when you came up by way of introduction was something along the lines of, I I feel like as women we don't see each other, like, for whatever reason at the gym. Men talk to men, men talk to women, but women don't talk to women. And I just remember, like, as soon as you said that, I was like, yeah, I think about that. Like, I'm kind of like hyper aware of that in a weird way. Um, and I think it definitely like needs to be sort of like thought about sometimes, because I think it's like gym environments are interesting because it's traditionally a very like masculine environment to be in,
A very what environment?
very masculine environment to be in. So I think being a female in there, like, you kind of are already used to being around men. Like, if you're unless you're going to like an all-female gym, you kind of have to be comfortable being around men. And I think for me, like, I grew up having a lot of like male friendships and not as many female friendships. And it probably wasn't until I moved out here to the Bay Area that I really started developing really close female friendships. So that you pointing that out also got me to reflect of like, yeah, it's something about being a female in a gym. There's sometimes it's uncomfortable to approach other women, and I don't know if it's like probably some insecurities, honestly, which I think you did actually bring up when we were talking about it, and sort of like women are kind of sort of trained to be in competition with each other in a way that's like, instead of seeing each other as adversaries and friends and support, which we really should be seeing each other as, it's more competitive.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I always wonder, by the way, if you're hearing karaoke or what sounds like karaoke,
It is karaoke.
That is karaoke. Yeah, we've got multiple stations going on here. Yeah, I think because I remember you asked me, oh, why do you think that is? When I said, yeah, well, why, we don't talk to each other women. And I said two things. The more charitable one, or the one that I would like to think is the one that outweighs the other one, is that we know that we probably just like, not that we want to be left alone, but we don't want to be the one to interrupt a woman's workout. Like, we
Yeah.
want to respect the idea that they probably are, busy or want to stay focused or whatever. But that the other one was exactly that I feel like, whether consciously or unconsciously, we're just socialized to see each other as threat and competition, and to kind of size up and maybe keep our distance. And it's so interesting because, at least with this group of guys, like, they're not doing that at all. And they're the ones I would expect to be doing it more,
Yeah.
like with their muscles, like comparing their
Yeah.
muscles. And no, these guys love each other, and
Yeah.
they're so cool with each other. But I do, even this morning, I saw a new woman at the gym that I had never seen before. And I caught my brain, like, almost like registering her the way you would register a threat. And I'm like, that is so fucking gross. It's so, but it's so deep in. And like, I'm grateful to catch myself and like, obviously we both have a lot of female friends. I love women. I love being friends with women. It's just that environment somehow. I don't know what it is, but it makes it feel, I don't know. It's just different. It's different, but it's good to highlight it and just work through it and figure it out. Because there's a lot of women there that you and I both talk to, and I think we're having a good time with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that also like in the gym environment is also a place of display. So I mean, I know for myself, there's an element of myself that comes out in the gym environment that doesn't come out in any other setting. Like for me, I was always like sort of a more sort of like no, just simply to say, I think just like having low self-esteem and not feeling confident, not feeling aggressive. Like, there's a lot of places in my life where I'm not aggressive, where I don't show up with like sort of this like feeling of strength, whether it be physical, whether it be emotional or mental. And it wasn't until being in a gym environment that then that sort of aggressive, there's almost like a primal aspect I think that can kind of come out in the gym environment where it's like, as a female, it's an opportunity to sort of display something that culturally we don't get to display very often, which is like physical strength. So, which is great. I love that, but then I'm also hyper aware of like the ego aspect of it. It's like, I think as women we can also kind of, you know, get a thing that guys get of like trying to like up each other and like, oh, I can do this. Can you do this type of thing? Like, yeah, I mean, it's.
That's funny. I feel so like, you know, I go to the gym regularly, but I was just telling Amanda that I'm like, what's kept me from seeing a trainer is like fear that they're going to laugh at me for how strong I'm not. So I haven't quite got to that feeling of like that kind of confidence. But to me, what's such a trip about it, the fact that my brain is even doing that when I see other women, is that I am definitely not trying to find a mate at the gym. Like I'm not even, that's not even why I'm there, you know.
Yeah.
But it's still this just funny thing. I think also too, it's on some level we know that other women have this experience. So like there's a lot of women that I've wanted to talk to and I've tried to make eye contact with because if I could make eye contact with them, then I would feel like, okay, that feels like an opening. And then I'll like approach them and say hi and introduce myself and maybe invite them to this. I did that with a woman this morning. But a lot of times when I try to make eye contact, they won't or they don't look at me, and I just wonder if they have that going on too. Like, you know, oh, I don't talk to, or you know, I don't want women contact. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
sure. I don't know, but it's nice to talk about it because it feels like this. I don't know. It feels like shame for me. It feels shameful to like
Yeah.
even acknowledge that
Yeah.
I even do that, but it also, the way to make shame go away is to, you know, bring it out. So
Yes, yeah, to kind of acknowledge like sort of the weird the signals that we send like without saying anything, which I think on some like subtle level like we're all kind of getting and responding to and responding also from, but I think to talk about it, it's sort of like, oh, we're like addressing elephants in the room,
yeah,
which
and it's a shared human experience.
yes.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's sort of a lot of times the problem in like an actual connection, which is why I love that you're doing this, is that because instead of like just making assumptions in our friendships and connections with others, actually asking people questions and listening and then like having a conversation that's just you don't know even what's going to come of it, I think is awesome, and that's what connecting should be about. So
yeah, and it's scary,
yeah.
but I knew that if someone could go there, it's definitely you. Like you've given me that vibe from the beginning. And I was telling one of our Crunchie friends that like my ultimate dream for a podcast would be conversations exactly like that. We're like in this really super intimate way where like maybe you and I are talking about a conversation that we had that got weird or got awkward, and then I would tell you what I assumed you were thinking, and then you would say, oh, I was actually thinking this, but I thought you were thinking that. And the whole purpose of it would just be to universalize that experience, to just let
Yes.
everybody know we all are full of this
Oh my
weird
God,
anxiety and
yes.
self-doubt, but like to talk
Yes.
about it is lifts a weight, you know?
There's this incredible quote that I had heard, and I don't know who the originator was. I heard it from Jay Shetty. I don't know if you're familiar with Jay Shetty, but it is
I'm
okay. So he said this at one point. Again, not sure if he's the original source, but he's like, "I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am.
Mm-hmm.
I am who I think you
You think?
think I am. Which is like
Yes.
so far removed from any type of reality.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So
That's
it's
a
so
good one.
true because there's so many stories that we all have in our heads.
Mm-hmm.
And we so often don't talk about the stories that we have in our heads, the
Mm-hmm.
assumptions that we're making.
And what's so crazy about that too is that other sort of, you know, idea that people think about you like way less than you think they do.
Yes.
So all of
Yep.
that, it's all made up. The whole thing is a mirage and a projection of, you know, they're not, yeah, they might not even be thinking about you whatsoever.
Yeah. It's this sort of self-obsessive, like
Yes, navel gazing.
narcissistic, navel
Yeah.
gazing. Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody said at one point in time, it's like, I think I'm the piece of shit at the center of the universe. And it's like, it is. It's like, it's not necessarily, I mean, it could be someone being really grandiose and being like, I'm just so amazing and great shit.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, a lot of us, I think, have also this sense of being humble. So then it's like, you know, you
Yeah.
kind of shit on yourself. But then in the act of shitting on yourself, you put so much focus on yourself that it's like so self-obsessive.
Yeah, and then you're disgusted with yourself for even giving
Yeah.
yourself that much thought.
That much credit. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that not only are you a piece of shit, you're like the biggest piece of shit.
Yeah, and everybody thinks, of course, everyone thinks that you're the biggest piece of shit. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah, that is real.
Okay, so it's funny because one of the things I was going to ask you that you kind of hit on, because I think a couple people, you know, we sort of were meeting a lot of people around the same time. I think you started hanging out with the Crunchies like one hangout before I did, so we were still being introduced to people. And I think people said to both of us that we seemed like so different, like outside of the gym. And you definitely are, not so much now because we're all, you know, shooting shit now, but before that, you were very plugged in.
Yeah.
And you still can be very, very focused. So aside from thinking about this female dynamic, what are you most often thinking about at the gym? What are your big recurring themes?
I actually have, I mean, it can be anything that's like stupid, mundane, to like having like epiphanies. I find that like working out, running, and being in the shower are like the places where I have like just clarity and moments of clarity and epiphanies.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, sometimes I'll literally stop in the middle of a workout and like I'm very close with my mom, and we like you know, a lot of times like when I'm processing stuff from the past and like I'll text her, I'll be like, hey, I just realized, and I'll send her something like, I just realized I recognize this, and it's like sort of just a revelation of like, huh, okay, and then I get back to it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
How does your mom respond to stuff like that?
Oh, always like super responsive, and she always has her own insights, and we've had a lot of like really cool, interesting conversations over the years. So
Where does
yeah.
your mom live?
She lives in Eugene, Oregon.
Oh, right. You were just there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah. So I gotta say,
Amanda's
that's Amanda,
walking
and
over
she
there.
sounds
She's doing
fucking
really well.
awesome.
She does.
That's
I'm sorry the
impressive.
sun is in your eyes right now.
That's
We're
all
gonna have to
good.
move this, but it happened just now. We got a
Yeah.
nice cloud cover going.
Yeah.
All right, I am gonna ask you from my randomizer.
Yeah, please do. I love random. It's like pulling it from the hat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Amanda.
All right. What do people often get wrong about you before they know you well? I realized this morning, I was thinking about this, I'm like, this could be hard because you oftentimes don't know what people thought about you. But you look like you had an answer.
Yeah, well, because I've had people say a few things. The most common thing is that, well, I think people assume I have more confidence about myself than I actually do. On the my inside voice does not have that much confidence, and also that I'm not like at least in the gym environment, that I'm not approachable. I've heard that from people like, oh, I didn't think you were approachable. But actually my mom, who got me into fitness, like back in my like late teens, 20s, and got me my first gym membership, she even said to me at one point in time, she's like, you know, Liz, you're a little unapproachable at the gym. You kind of look like a bitch. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm just focused. So
And it can be good if you just want to get through a workout.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
yeah.
So but do you think that that's true of you outside of the gym as well, or just in that?
No. I was saying, there's something about the gym environment. I get to switch into this like sort of more aggressive masculine side
Yeah.
that I don't, and like confident side that I don't feel in my daily life as
Yeah,
much.
because you seem very much approachable to me in just
Oh, that's good to
walking
hear.
around life.
Yeah. I try to
ask you.
consciously be more approachable now. Yeah, and smile, and like I think ever since like us forming our community, it's made me realize that like there's so many awesome people around me all the time, and it's just a matter of me like being receptive to like having conversations with people, and like taking the risk to like say hello, make eye contact, and maybe sometimes it'll be someone who's not someone that I actually want to get to know, or like, you know, but at least then I know. So
Yeah, right. All right,
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you one more,
Sure.
and let's see. Ah, what is the most potentially positive thing you would like to do that fear keeps you from doing?
The most potentially positive thing that I would like to do that fear keeps me from doing. I I think for whatever reason, it's going to sound really weird, but like actually genuinely like volunteering my time for people and organizations that really need it. I feel like I'm not great about supporting like causes, nonprofits. Like I have strong feelings, but I don't take action.
Is it fear that's keeping you from doing it?
I think so. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. It's like I think it's more a fear of like putting in the energy, and maybe like feeling like it's not gonna that it's not gonna be used. I was raised. My father was very, very like pessimistic about humanity and about society, and especially Western society. So I've like always been very sort of like on a grander scheme of things, like glass half empty.
Oh.
So it sort of feels like I've always sort of visualized like when it comes to like putting care and effort and energy into like a really important cause, it feels like pouring water into a bucket with a bunch of holes in it. So yeah, I think it's that storyline of like, I'm not really gonna be able to help.
Yeah.
Which is absolute bullshit, because people can help in so many different ways. Like I know that logically, like, yeah.
What's the cause that you would most like to get involved in?
I've definitely wanted to help with folks that are homeless or unhoused. But at the same time, like I have such an aversion to it. I think there's the fear of just like making yourself vulnerable to someone who's in so much need, and like realizing how it's going to force you to look at like the choices that you make in your life, and how there's so much excess in my life, and I mean in any of our lives there's a huge amount of excess, and we've just become accustomed to like that's what's normal. And meanwhile we're surrounded by people that are, I mean, even our unhoused homeless folks, you know, are probably a lot better off than people in other areas of the country or other areas of the world, for sure. So
Yeah.
and it kind of reminds me, I'm big into Ram Dass, listening to Ram Dass, and he was talking about like, and he's passed now, but he did this sort of experiment at one point in time where he took a bunch of people that were just, you know, your average middle class Americans, and he had them do this sort of practice of like mindfully sort of working with homeless folks and everything. And he was saying that this one woman he talked to told him that there was a homeless man on her street who she would see him like every day, and before she started doing this experiment, she would like, you know, give him like a quarter, 50 cents, $1, and then but that she always had this fear she would never make eye contact with him. She would never greet him. She would just give him the money and not have an interaction. And she realized after doing this experiment that her fear was that once she sort of opened her heart, that he would wind up like being in her house, in her home, and like sort of that once you open your heart to someone, that there's no boundaries, sort of like that you're going to be overwhelmed with like that realizing that one person is just the same as any other person. You know, if this person is suffering, you know, it's like, okay, someone is suffering, and if they're a family member or a dear friend, like you go out of your way to help them and support them. Versus like, well, what about this stranger who's suffering? Are they any different? And then when I think you start to blur the lines between who is within your bubble versus who isn't, when there is no longer a bubble, you start to feel the responsibility and the weight of like everything around you.
Yeah, because if you got into the story of that one person, then you have to realize, multiply it by all the people you see every single day, and it's a lot of pain and a lot of suffering to sort of try and even just understand, let alone help.
Yeah. So the problem, it's the fine line between apathy and like, you know, bleeding heart humanitarian, like somewhere between the two. Like,
we gotta find that balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sitting today.
It's a pleasure.
Hope you'll join me in the studio one day when it's that time.
I love talking with you. I love being around you, Kisa. You're awesome.
I know, likewise. We're not allowed to hug because we're tethered.